I like to use my Pigma liners and pencils most often in terms of what I pack to take with a sketchbook day to day because they're lightweight. There's a great variety of colors and line weights available, especially when it comes to the black Pigma markers. The best invention, I think, is the brush variety of the Pigma marker. I have some here by a couple of different companies. The one currently is by, I believe it's Faber-Castell. I was gifted these ones. It's actually really, really nice. Great flexibility in terms of the tip. And then in terms of kind of my favorite actual fine liners, I tend to either gravitate towards the Micron variety or the Staedtler fine liners, just because I like the color payoff and the, I guess, density of the tip when actually using it on paper. I can sometimes have a slightly heavy hand, and I always find that these ones feel sturdy. They haven't broken on me yet. If I wanted to switch it up though, I usually will just carry a couple of different weights and then a variety of the Muji gel pens. They come in a bunch of different colors and a couple of different weights, I guess, line weights. Kind of a minimal difference though. It'd just be the difference between, say, a 0.3 versus a 0.5. But it does give you at least the option, if you like to have a really fine line, you can purchase that if it's your preference. Here's just an example of kind of the very different types of line that are achievable with these types of markers, and the fact that you could use them in combination. This is a pretty terrible drawing, honestly, but it gives you at least the idea that depending on what you're trying to go for, you can get a really, really bold drawing if you're using, say, the brush tips versus the really delicate line of a Pigma liner. As well, with any of these things, they are, as far as I know, extremely light fast. Like, they don't fade on me at all. Once the ink's kind of set in the paper, you have the capacity to also use an eraser over top. There's no smudging, which is amazing. So you could use them in combination if you wanted. With pencil sketches, if you wanted to define your drawing further and then maybe remove the trace remains of the pencil afterwards. This drawing is a good example, though, of just how delicate the lines can be versus kind of super bold and chunky. In terms of pencils, I mean, this is kind of like the classic sketchbook utensil. I usually try and carry along with me a couple of different options, typically always an HB because I like it if I'm going to take notes or just lay down the initial elements of a sketch. Then I usually will have something a little darker like a 2B and an 8B so that I can get more tonal varieties, and then usually up to a 16B. I don't like to go too much darker for a sketchbook just because I find that with no fixative there's not much point. It can start to get a little smudgy, but it is a lot of fun because you can play around with drawing lines, and then the pencil really allows you to kind of just shade things in a way that you can't achieve with marker. Marker is going to be one flat ink tone, which is nice because it gives you a nice bold graphic look, whereas pencil is definitely a lot softer potentially on how you want to use it. Just gives you another option and look. And there's a reason why it's been used for so long, because it's really easy to use and it's not totally permanent. Pack an eraser, and you can easily erase anything that you are not fully contented with. So here you can definitely see that taking on the darker pencil really adds a little more oomph, a little more substance to what was kind of a very light, feathery sketch of some pothos leaves here. So for watercolors, I like them for a few different reasons. I usually will have watercolors with me if I'm ever going on holiday because they can be used over top of any of my Staedtler Pigma liners. So I'd mentioned earlier that after those liners dry, you can use an eraser, but they're also waterproof. So you can take a liquid substance like the watercolor and do a wash over top so that you can kind of infuse a little more color into what might be just a black and white image. Or in this case, I also like watercolor capabilities just for simple drawings. In this case, it's a little more illustrative what I've done in my sketchbook. Pastels are a kind of, again, even more traditional tool of drawing, super lightweight, but my usually hesitation with this particular item when I'm packing it is just that it can be messy if you choose the chalk variety. Chalk's nice because it's super light. It blends pretty well together. It kind of falls into the camp of being messy because being chalk, it kicks up a lot of dust, but it also doesn't fix itself necessarily to one space. So if you don't have a fixative, it can potentially just transfer itself to other pages. So the sister item would be the oil pastel. And it's most similar, I would say, to like the crayons that you're accustomed to from childhood. So they give you more color payoff, I find, and a very kind of bold look, depending on how you use them. Like right here, I'm using the oil pastel in combination. So this brown is serving as kind of a more weighted, earthy drawing material in comparison to the soft, airy, chalky look of the chalk pastels. And plus the oil pastels stay put, which I usually prefer. But they look nice in combination. So those are my favorite drawing tools that I like to take with my sketchbook on the go. If you have other favorites or if you agree with my picks, do let me know. Thanks so much.